Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Space, and today we're going to listen to a random teenager on the internet rant about the failure of his predecessors. What the fuck is that intro? Hello everyone, my name is Space. This is the actual intro. Please do mind my incoherent slip smacking. I just had dinner. Anyway, like the little joke from earlier, we will be talking about the failure of internet predecessors and how heroes don't exist anymore. And I know those two don't really connect in a very nice and meaningful way, but trust me, it'll all make sense. It'll all make sense. So literally less than like 5 minutes ago at this point, watching a video on Sneeko and how he had a real fall from grace, how he went from being a prolific teenager on the internet talking about political issues and other random bullshit while playing Call of Duty to for lack of a better term, a cunt. And it is impressive to see how far someone can fall when they give in too much to their own ego. It's not pathetic because it could happen to anyone, so I won't say that, but it is telling of how much control the human mind really does have over themselves. Because I refuse to believe that Sneeko wasn't at least a little bit fucking self-aware of what was going on, of his own downfall, of his own descent into egoism, becoming his own egomaniac, wanting control. And not only wanting but control, but being obsessed with it like a damn megalomaniac. And it can happen to anyone, in my opinion. I mean, it's certainly happened to me before in fighting games where I view myself as better than everyone else in a certain sense, then get fucked over when I realize I'm not that good. I'm just a better than average, which doesn't really sit well with you once you realize your own lack of skill or lack of control over said thing you're doing. It is honestly kind of depressing when you think about it, but it is what it is. Whatever happens will happen. That's the own, the way the world works. Mind me, I suck with words. So how does this have to do with heroes and there being a lack of them? See, when you grow up, you probably think of, people you want to look up to, heroes in the world, people who are, have great morals, great values, people you want to aspire to become. But in this day and age, they don't exist. You see, heroes died a long time ago, unironically dying with the same YouTube many people hate nowadays, the old edgy 2016 content, where people could really portray themselves as holier than thou, but even then, you couldn't, because everyone has had an edgy phase where they thought that saying the N-word online was funny as hell and was the funniest thing ever because it was a word that they can get away with saying, but due to a certain level of anonymity and then becoming famous and that being stripped from them, that anonymity they had in the past, now that they are becoming successful figures, they can't really get away with saying that shit anymore. Or you could take the PewDiePie route and probably say it in close quarters so often that it slips out, which honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it came out that back then when PewDiePie was on that bridge on that fateful day, he was saying the N-word in public. I mean, not public, private a lot. It's just very sad that a lot of the people that others tend to look up to aren't really heroes, but products of their own ego. The concept of heroes still exists, don't get me wrong, but take Homelander, for example, and if you haven't seen The Boys, then this is going to be a real funny thing for you to hear since you have no idea what the context is, but Homelander, on the outside, is a beloved hero, but behind close quarters, he's just an egomaniac, a megalomaniac who is obsessed with his own power. That's what a fucking megalomaniac is. He wants power. He wants all the control in the world. He was obsessed with it. He views himself as better than anyone else. But in reality, he'd lose to anyone who can actually put up a good challenge. People keep saying Metro. I'm not fucking Metro Man. Uh, fucking Metro Man. People keep saying, what if you put Omni Man versus Homelander, Superman versus Homelander, and Homelander would get fucking washed because Homelander, he's just a guy who's never really faced any adversity in his own life. He's just a product of his own ego in that sense that he thinks he's better than anyone else, but in reality, because of how strong he is, he's never had a real challenge. And it's sad to see, honestly, the devolution of a person due to the fact that they view themselves better than everyone else. Now, to actually relate this back to heroism and how the concept online does not exist, instead of me ranting for fucking minutes at a time, take let's take our buddy Sneeko for example. He once was a very respected individual in the YouTube online space who had very interesting thoughts and a take on things. Now has been banned for seemingly the exact same thing that got him popular, just to a much more right wing extent, because he went from being extremely liberal. Actually, I won't say extremely liberal. He went from being more on the right to a lot more on the left. It's impressive to me, honestly. He got popular, he realized his real view is, and then they got to an extent where it was becoming truly harmful in the eyes of many. And let's take him for example. Did some people view him as a hero? Maybe, who knows? But as time goes on, you start to realize that he wasn't really a hero, just a kid speaking his mind who was in over his head. Sneeko is currently 24 years old. He has probably grown from his mistakes, but not enough to realize what truly fucked him over. Because at the end of the day, he's still very, very immature. Just like most people, when you really think about it, no one really grows up. Their body just matures. And that's how I think of it, at least. You have countless examples of people who say things that are agreeable, and then once they get that platform, once they can fully shift into what they really believe, when their ego truly sets in, you start to realize they weren't really heroes, just people who had agreeable takes. And that's why I think the concept of heroism online has died, because there is no one you're going to fully be able to relate to anymore. You can fully look up to anymore without realizing that at the end of the day, do you just agree with some of their takes, or are they really your hero? And yeah, you could make the argument that heroes do still exist. Take firefighters and the good policemen, for example. They are heroes. They risk their lives on a day-to-day basis. But on the online sphere, can you really say the same about anyone else? Name one person who really comes out looking like a hero in the online space, except for the commentary channels with squeaky clean backstories, or just the ones who haven't really said anything about where they really come from yet. Like Sneeko, who, he came from a very modest background and has now been banned, like I stated earlier. People often look down on the act of being a megalomaniac or being an egomaniac, when in reality, it can and will happen to everyone at some point. Whether it be being a good writer within your friend group, becoming good at a game, being fast, very athletic, it can happen to anyone. Your ego growing to an extent to where you think you are better than everyone else because you've never really faced a true challenge up to that point. And that's what I account egoism to. I account egoism to people not truly meeting their real match. They're so used to an environment where they're better than everyone else, where they fail to realize that outside of their bubble, they probably just aren't shit. And I, have to hear that one too. It's a small bruise, and to anyone else who's having views as if they are better, they are stronger. You're not. That's just what it is. You're not better than anyone else. You're not stronger than everyone else. You aren't the best out of everyone. You may be the best inside your bubble and your friend group of friends, but are you really good outside of that? And of course, there are some exceptions, like you can be an unmistakably good combat fighter in a fighting game. That was a really weird way to phrase that. Could be a really good writer, objectively a really good sports player. You could be objectively fast. You could be the fastest in your state, and yeah, that goes out of the boundaries of being better than everyone else because at that point you are, but that's just in your state. Compared to the country, you might not be shit. It's a slippery slope of are you really better, or the funny Dragon Ball concept of there's always a bigger fish. No matter how strong you get, no matter how good you get, there will always be a bigger fish as long as you're within your own human limitations. And I'm not saying go beyond your human limitations because those limitations are what make us human. Take Saitama for example, and I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I do want to continue with this thought. Yeah, so let's take Saitama for example, a man who surpassed his human limitations, who went well beyond the peak human physiology we're used to with Batman and Captain America. If don't go on the superpower wiki and look at the fact that he's actually has enhanced human and not peak human, which are two separate things. Getting back to the topic at hand, let's take Saitama, someone who's well surpassed their limit as a human, who is currently boundless in the current series. Spoiler alert, by the way. And people say that you know what? Let's not get into all the nitty gritty versus whatnot. Saitama is a man desensitized to everything around him because of how strong he's gotten. He just wants to fight an actual fun fight again. He has progressed so far that him being egotistical just doesn't even matter anymore. It doesn't make sense for him to be egotistical. At a certain point, if you become the best, you just lose the ego you had to begin with because, well, you can't compare yourself to anyone else anymore. You are the people who you get compared to. But outside of his universe, Saitama's still Cell games level in Dragon Ball Z. Stop fucking adding me. Anyway, when you get to a certain point, your ego should disappear, and it doesn't for some people, and that shouldn't be looked down upon either. But it is. I think it's wrong, and some people might disagree with me because this is the internet. Once your opinion's out there, it's out there forever. Digital footprint, people. That's just how it's going to be forever. But when you really think about it, is it that bad to succumb to your own subconscious? Because that's really what it is. You're becoming a slave to yourself. And although, yes, that is a pretty bad thing considering certain circumstances, but at the same time, is it really? And that's a question I could leave this video off on, but I am a teenager on the internet wanting to rant about random shit, so I will continue talking. Coming back to the narrative I was trying to build about there no longer being heroes, I'm basically trying to say there's no longer people you can look up to anymore, because at a certain point, people's past will come out, or people's true and real thoughts, unfiltered thoughts will come out, and at the end of the day, it's just as bad as us. I don't like the idea or thought of idealizing other human beings because at the end of the day, we are all the same fucking race, human beings, not black, white, European, African, Asian, Jewish, Hispanic, Indian, which are just Asians, Russian, which is just Europeans. You get what I'm trying to say. We're all humans at the end of the day. There's no need to idolize people anymore. But because at the end of the day, they're just as human as we are. Yeah, they have money. Yeah, they have fame. But at the end of the day, they're still humans at their core. Even if they decide to follow the route of an egomaniac or megalomaniac, They're still human. Why idolize them? Because it could have been anyone else given the right circumstance. Now, I'm not saying this to try and condone any actions. I'm not saying this to try and write off what people have been doing, like Russia or people idolizing Hitler. That's not a good thing. That's fucking horrible. But I'm trying to say that you shouldn't idolize people, because any one of those people you're idolizing, given the right circumstance and right beliefs, could be just as bad. And I'm not saying have this cynical outlook on human life in general, because that's also just really annoying to deal with when you're always a damn cynic. But it's just how people are. People need people to look up to. People need figures like, and as much as it pains me to say this, people need figures who are willing to go out of their way, like Andrew Tate, because although people hate him, he did help some people. Now, let's remove the fact that Andrew Tate and put it at a pure basic level. People need others to look up to when they can't look inside themselves for an answer. That's that point that I'm trying to get at. Please don't fucking cancel me. I have like 16 subscribers. I'm not going to get canceled regardless. But still, digital footprint. It's telling when a human has nothing to look up to anymore, where they look to the absolute depths of what humanity has to offer. And that's sad. And I'm not saying Andrew Tate's the absolute depth that humanity has to offer, because in reality, he's not. Just a dickhead. But it's just funny to me how people view others as heroes, but in reality, they're just famous people. Now, we're going to take a really sharp turn and talk about Elon Musk. This has been a topic I've wanted to get off my head for a while now, and since I'm doing a video about how heroes no longer exist, let's talk about the old saying, you either die as a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Elon Musk is a businessman through and fucking through, and if anyone doesn't realize that, they're just a dumbass. I'm gonna be honest. People thought Elon Musk was so quirky and cool because he was on Twitter talking about random shit, when in reality, he was doing illegal acts by manipulating the stock market, which he was sued for multiple times. Maybe not multiple, but he's been sued for it at least once, I can assure that. And he was, in reality, he's a dickhead. He fired most of Twitter staff because they weren't needed per se, then had to go behind himself and hire a bunch of people because Twitter was going to fucking kill itself. It's going to implode. Now, Twitter is currently imploding because of the Twitter files and a bunch of other shit, like Twitter just being a bad platform to begin with. But still, Elon Musk was revered as a hero for the Gen Z, or just someone you could look up to, someone who was a good guy, but in reality, he's just a fucking businessman with horrible, horrible takes at times. Holy shit. Anyway, what people view as a hero is just someone who aligns with their current moral compass, which will change in a moment's notice. And that's another reason why I think heroes are dead. The moral compass of the general population is no longer the same. People view certain acts as inexcusable, and then allow their favorite person to do it. That's not having morality. That's just having bias. And speaking of bias, on a very short tangent, confirmation bias is a thing where you only look for something that confirms your belief. And that's what a lot of people do. People only look for things that confirm their own beliefs. Even if their belief is wrong, utterly incorrect, if you search hard enough, you will find proof and evidence that you are correct. And that is wrong to me. Which It might be right to some people, but hey, I'm not the arbiter of justice here. I'm not the arbiter of all things correct. I'm just a teenager. But still, this is like a 20 fucking minute video. I've been on a rant for the past like 20 minutes. Obviously, I just said that. But relating back to the narrative that I was trying to build, heroism, and how heroism on the general online public is a dead concept only because of how people are currently. There are no people you can justly look up to because you don't know the full history of a person. Even Superman is a fucking man. It's really all there is to it. Everyone's a human. No one should be idolized in that regard of being a hero. And even if you do, most heroes are dead. They died a while ago. They died once their past became public information, or they died when their shitty acts caught up to them. And that's not to hate on anyone. That's not to like throw shade or shots at anyone. Because in reality, you could be just as bad, or I could be just as bad. Only the people who actually know me know, and I like to think that I'm not a bad person, but who am I to say? I'm myself. I'm always going to view myself in the utmost and high regard, but viewing myself too highly makes me an egomaniac, or being too happy with the power I may have over others, become a megalomaniac. And that's what everything boils down to at the end of the day. It boils down to how much you can control your own ego. And that's what I want to leave everything off on. Human nature is to be very selfish and self-serving, but to what extent is the correct extent? Of course, everyone can come up with a common consensus, but people have different views and different narratives. So, what's really the difference between right and wrong? Who made a right right and who made a wrong wrong? That's my question for the day. And next time I make a video, I'll end off with a random question, because from now on I'm probably going to be doing random rants on shit I just listened to. So yeah, this is the video. I've been Space. Thank you all for listening and watching. Whatever you're doing, have an amazing day, night, afternoon, meal, sleep, if you watch YouTube in your sleep like a fucking weirdo. And I'll see you all next time. Peace out.